are a lot of beers out there, and there are a lot of beer lovers out there. And while you may like your simple, clean, smooth beers, how about trying something different? How about an extreme beer?
They frequently have high alcohol. They use unusual ingredients. Sometimes they're aged in wood barrels, might have a lot of hops, an extreme amount of hops.
Yes, that's what makes an extreme beer, if you were wondering. Adam Tepetalen is a beer writer who has recently come out with his book, The Brutal Truth, Guide to Extreme Beers. Hooked on craft beer since the movement started in his university days in Oregon, Tepetalen has tasted more beers than, let's say, the average person.
The industry has changed, grown, evolved to the point now where there's just so many more breweries and so many different kinds of beer and so many different styles.
For his book alone, he tried over 100 extreme beers. Okay, let's give you a taste of some of the beers in this book.
There is another beer in there called Ghost-Faced Killa, which has the ghost pepper in it, ghost chili pepper in it.
It's from Colorado, and it's not something you want to guzzle.
It is burn your mouth spicy. There's a warning on it that says, keep away from children and only consume in small quantities.
If you don't want to feel the burn, maybe try something different, like hops.
One was called 1,000 IBUs, and that is, IBU is a way of measuring the amount of hops in a beer. And a typical, let's say a typical craft IPA will have between maybe 40 and 70 IBUs. And a very hoppy one would have 100 plus IBUs. So this one was claiming to have 1,000 IBUs.
He says there is a point where your tongue won't even register the bitterness until afterwards, where you are scratching the tongue and just trying to get the bitter taste out. Okay, we're going to start with the oyster stout.
This is an unusual version of an oyster stout.
Yeah.
Many years ago, stouts were consumed with oysters because they taste good together.
This isn't actually made from oysters. They just use the oyster juice to make the beer. Tepetalen says it's not strong, but it does have chocolatey, smoky notes.
You get this little bit of like oceany, iodine-y, a little bit of minerality in the background. Again, just sort of suggesting the ocean.
The ocean.
Yeah.
Not actually drinking it.
Doesn't taste like the ocean specifically.
An extreme beer, like any other beer, should be balanced so it still tastes good. Next up, it's for all you licorice fans.
Black licorice has sort of similar complementary flavors to a lot of the flavors you would typically get in a stout.
So I'm not a big fan of licorice or oysters, so I went with the double hops, which has about 100 IBUs. We put it into a wine glass to enjoy the aromatics. Oh, it's hoppy.
Yeah.
You can smell that.
So you get like a lot of fruity notes and
Yeah. You know what? I agree with you. It's hoppy, but it's got those sweet tones to it.
yeah. And you get the really strong bitterness at the
Yeah,
end.
at the very end,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. And just a warning for enjoying any of these beers.
These are beers that generally you're not guzzling for refreshment on a hot day.
The book is called A Brutal Truth, Guide to Extreme Beers, and it is available in bookstores everywhere. And of course, for you musical fans, just a side note, with the beers, there are some musical pairings, like Bacon Maple Ale with the Pig Destroyer. So it would make a great Christmas present. In Victoria, I'm Sucheta Singh.